Hey everyone, welcome back to Casey 3D Sparks. Today we're going to be continuing our Behir. So last week we went ahead and made the torso with the tail and applied the array modifier and all that fun stuff. Real quick, just so you guys remember, I do have my scene set to inches, and usually you have to just reset that whenever you reopen your files. So you'll want to go ahead and put that back to inches or whatever you'll be working with. But the grid of the scale floor should stay the same if you saved it, and I have mine set to 1/4 of an inch. Now for the Behir, last time I think I went ahead and applied the mirror and the subdivision surface before doing the array. Side note, you don't have to do the array modifier after these are applied. You can do it during and still apply it, and then that way, once we have that configured, we can go ahead and just start working on the head while the mirror is still on there and the subdivision. So that way we have a lot less geometry to work with, and it'll probably be a little bit easier. So just a little side note there. So I did backtrack and undo these, redo the mirror or the array modifier, so that way I can work this way and it'll be a lot easier for us. I did go back as well and add a little bit more detail to the legs as well, if you can see. Just some more skin folds to give it a little bit more realism, not too much, because we make sure that it actually prints. And then I just rounded out some of the nails a little bit, so nothing too dramatic, but I just thought I would mention what I changed. So for the head of the Behir, it's basically just really long neck that will go ahead and stretch out, maybe taper in a little bit, and then his mouth goes back really far, and then he has these little beady eyes and all the horns and everything like that. So nothing too crazy. You guys should be able to do this pretty easily when you follow along with me. So we're just going to go ahead and tab in edit mode, and we already have a nice loop right here that I'm just going to alt right click, and we're gonna just stretch that out, and we're gonna use that for our neck, probably about that long. You guys make it a little bit shorter. Maybe you'll make it right about here with this grid line, or somewhere in the between, but we can always make it longer because he does have a pretty long neck that can flex around. So now for the head, I'm gonna go ahead and just do E to extrude and pull this out as well. And the head isn't as long, so I'm basically just considering this right behind the horn, how long his neck is, and then this part, the head, with including the horn. So it's still pretty long, but not as long as the neck. So we'll probably just go ahead and grab this and move that there, so that way the neck's a little bit longer. Now after the horn, probably about here or so, you'll notice that the mouth starts opening up. So we'll probably taper that off. But before we start tapering off this area, I wouldn't mind getting some of the horn shape in place. So we're just going to leave this right now and get a base of our horn. So what I want to do for the horn is probably do Control R and add another loop here. So we start getting a base set up. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to face select mode. And I'm going to go ahead and do these two faces right here and just do E to extrude. Just hit escape, size that in. I'm just going to hide that menu by hitting N, so we don't need it anymore. And I might go ahead and do another loop here, so that way once we set back to vertex select mode, we can go ahead and grab these 4 vertices, size them in just to start creating a circle. Now it's a little small. The base of the horn is a lot bigger, so we'll probably want to go ahead and size that back up to be almost where our square is. More like that. Okay, so we have the base set up. Before we go ahead and create the horn, I want to go ahead and do some more of the setting up of the actual face itself. So even though it tapers off here, instead of resizing, like we could grab this, do S and Z, taper this off, start reshaping it, that kind of thing, if you wanted the mouth closed. I think a big part of miniatures is, seeing the creature in action. So I'm going to go ahead and model it with his mouth open. If you want to do it closed, go right ahead. You can certainly do that, but I want to go ahead and have his mouth open. So what I want to do is go ahead and grab these. Actually, yeah, we want the mouth crease to be on this edge here. So all I need to do is grab this vertice. I'm going to have my mouse below it, and all you have to hit is V to rip that apart. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag that down. And I can drag this part up to create the crease of the mouth. Now, it already has a little bit of the webbing there, but it's not quite right. But we'll have to edit this a little bit to be a little bit better. So we have the mouth, and we want to go ahead and start probably getting some of the eye and nose shape as well. So he has little horns above his eyeballs, and then we can probably go ahead and size this down to kind of match the bottom because his mouthpieces are pretty similar. So I'm just going to go ahead, grab these guys, bring this up to size that down a lot more. Okay, looking pretty good. So for the eye shape, we'll probably do something similar. I'm just gonna go ahead and do Control R. So there's one right there. That'll be our centerpiece. I'm gonna do Control R, slide that up to be right about there, and make this kind of even to be right about there. And again, we'll just go ahead, grab these guys, hit E to extrude, and just size it in a little bit. And then we can grab these 4 and size in as well. Actually, before we do that, because we do want our eye to be pretty round, to make sure our topology is pretty good with that, we'll just go ahead and do SC0 to start kind of flattening out this part, setting up the eye socket. So SC0, grab these, SC0, oops, that one's already good, SC0. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and grab these 4, size them in. And it's a little bit oblong. I do want it to be more circular. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to leave that and drag this in. Actually, I'll go ahead and drag this in a little bit too to try and keep it a little bit more circular. I'm going to do E to extrude and just, oops. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to face select, grab these faces, do E to extrude, push it in along the X, and then we'll probably push it down a little bit too. And then we'll just do E to extrude again, size that way in, and pull it out along the X and up along the Z, like that. And then I'll go back, Shift E to sharpen that to create kind of more of that eye socket look. And then we can start altering the shape around it to give it more of that bone structure. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull this up, maybe size these out, push this down and out, make it bulge out a little bit, whoops, more, as well as these. Okay, and we can mess with that a little bit more, but make sure you are happy with the shape before you go too far. But I think that base shape is pretty nice for what we're going for. It is pretty circular, and that was what we were trying to do. So awesome. From there, we don't want to forget about the horns, but I wouldn't mind setting up a bit of the nose first. So for the nose, we basically need to just bring this down and close it off. So what we can do is grab these 4 vertices, and we're going to hit E to extrude and drag that down. I'm just going to go into front view. And basically grab these 4, and I'm going to hit F for face to round that off nice and neat for us. And it's not a triangle or anything, it's still a quad. But I am going to drag this back up, go back into front view, and that's basically what we need to do. I probably want to go ahead and do S and Z to flatten it out a little bit, but not too much. Still kind of want this to be more at an angle, so that actually works out pretty well. And then we basically want to do the same thing here, but you'll notice that there's only 3 vertices. We don't have as much geometry to play with, so if you want an easy way, we can just go ahead and add a loop here. E to extrude, pull that up. 1, 2, 3, 4. F for face to round that off, nice and neat. Perfect. And then of course you can always drag these out to make it a little bit more rounded. And actually, instead of doing them individually, we can go ahead and turn on proportional editing. I'm going to do connected. With that selected, go into top view, focus in on it, and drag that out. We will have to scroll this way down, maybe a little bit more. There we go, to get that a little bit more round. And we can do the same to the bottom. Perfect. That way he doesn't have a flat nose. It is kind of flat in the picture, but it still looks like he has a little bit of a rounded edge. So I want to make sure we kind of keep that going. Okay. I'm just going to deselect that and we're going to work on the horn a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead, go back to face select, disable our proportional editing, select these 4 faces. And we're just going to go ahead and E to extrude, and I'm just going to right click out of it. I'm going to go into front view so I can drag this out just slightly. We're going to go ahead and we're going to have to maneuver this a good amount. So actually, we'll go ahead and rotate it along the X a good bit. Or, I'm sorry, along the Y. And probably rotate it till this part is pretty close to touching his head. So here's that. We'll do E to extrude again. We're just going to pull that out and start working it down. And I do want this part to be sharpened, so we'll just go ahead and Shift E that. And then we could move this down a little bit to start. Go back into front view, push this down, rotate it slightly. And we also need to make sure it's starting to go back too. So we need to grab this part and push it back. E to extrude again. I'm just going to go ahead and start by pulling it down. Pull it out, rotate it. And it won't be perfect, so I'll probably push and pull some of these individually as well. Feel free to do that if you're interested, so that way it's not as flat. Pull this out. Actually, I'll leave that one flat for now. E to extrude. I'm going to go into top view. I might start sizing it down a little bit. Size it down, rotate it up. That's not too bad, but you'll notice since I was only looking at the side, it starts to go out. So we'll definitely want to bring that back in so it's that way. So I'm going to grab this loop, push it. There we go. And it is kind of nice with the rotation. You can kind of see kind of like these nice lines, how it's rotating around, which I personally like. If you don't, well, you can definitely rotate it differently so that way it's not as evident, but I feel like it kind of helps with a bony texture, but maybe that's just me. I'm gonna draw this out as well, just to make it a little bit thicker and irregular. Hopefully a little bit more organic looking. Okay, but that's a good start. It's honestly not as long on his neck though. I think I'm gonna go ahead, grab this part, make sure I don't, oops, grab the ones behind it. And we're gonna pull that up more like that because it's not as long as I had it. So I think that'll work better. And then I also want to go ahead and grab the base and just drag that down a little bit. Make that a little bit thicker. Okay. So now that we have his horn pretty set, I mean, I might go back and tweak it later, but now that we have the basis done, we'll go ahead and work a little bit more above the eye. So like I said, he has kind of that curved horn. It's kind of awkward in the picture because one looks pretty curved while the other is kind of straight up. So it's kind of hard to tell what the artist, or at least for me, it's hard to tell if he's supposed to have it curved or not, or it's just depending on the angle. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, grab these two to start, and we're just gonna E to extrude and just start sizing that along the Z. I'm gonna size along the Y, or I'm sorry, move up along the Z and size along the Y in to start making it a little bit more round. I'm gonna size along the Z to make it a little bit flatter. Actually, I might go ahead and do all the way flat. E to extrude again. We're just gonna size up to get kind of that nice base. Actually, we can do that. E to extrude and pull that up and size that in. And sharpen that part. Now, if you want, you can certainly grab all of this. You could do Shift W for the warp tool. Actually, I'm not too used to the warp tool, so let's see. More like that to kind of angle it a little bit. Maybe like that. And then back. But I think it goes along the origin, so sometimes that's a little bit difficult. I think it might be easier just to add another loop. Pull this forward. Rotate this and pull it back. Maybe something like that is what it's supposed to be like. I think I'd like to go ahead and size this out a little bit. Make that a little bit thicker. There we go. Just rounding it out a little bit. Now, the main part is the mouth. His teeth are not like normal, set every other one, and then they get like bigger and thicker in the back, and then longer and skinnier in the front. They're a little bit different. So he has a few teeth in the front. Now, some of the images on the internet are pretty pixelated, but if you have the monster manual, it's on page 25. It's easiest to see his teeth there. So he has two large fangs on the bottom here, and then he has kind of like a weird row of teeth, very long and pointy in the back that kind of curve up. So we'll have to make his gums different. So that'll be fun. And then he just kind of has smaller, really little teeth on the top, and then they get a little bit bigger in the back. So we might have to open his mouth up a little bit more potentially, but yeah, if you can't find a good picture on the internet, he's on page 25 of the monster manual, and you can see it much easier there, or at least I can. So yeah, we'll go ahead, we'll just go start with the 2 fangs in the front, because you really only have to do the one. But first we should probably get his gums set. So I'm just going to alt right click this entire loop, and we're just going to hit E to extrude and size that in slightly. But I don't really want it sizing along the Z, so I'm going to undo that and hit S, Shift Z, so that way it just sizes in towards itself, just like that. I'm going to pull along the X a little bit more. And then on the back one, this, I don't want it really coming forward too much. I actually want this to basically stay the same. So I'm going to drag that back. Alt right click again. E to extrude. Size it. Shift Z. So it just draws in. And then we do want to go ahead and just kind of start cleaning it up a little bit, because it starts to kind of go in directions you don't really want it to go in. So we'll just go ahead and fix that up, especially these guys. Pull this all the way back. Push this back, and this guy should come back as well. Okay, there we go. It's looking much better. And I'm just smoothing these out a little bit. So now what I kind of want to do is do a Control R right here and do S and Z to kind of give a raised edge, and that will be kind of starting our gum line. It's not as dramatic back here, but that's fine. That part, like I said, it has that really weird and dramatic curved gum line, so we're gonna have to mess with that one back here anyway, so we're not gonna worry about that. I'm just gonna go ahead and do E to extrude. I'm gonna hit 7 so I can go into the top, and we're just gonna drag all this back and start sizing it in. S and Y. Push this back again. And we can start closing this off. So first thing, I drag these over, face that off. The next 4 is a little awkward. I'm gonna go ahead and push this in, pull this down, face that off. 1, 2, 3, 4 is again a little awkward, but we're gonna do it anyway. And then what we can do, oops, is Control R, do 3 loops, so size that, oops, size along the Z. 1, 2, 3, 4, face that off. 3, so there is a triangle, but that's okay. It's inside the mouth. It's not really going to affect anything. I'm not too concerned about it, but this is pushed up a lot further, so we'll want to push these back. I'm going to just switch to face select so I can grab these pretty easily. Go in a side view and push that like that, and push that a little bit further, because then that keeps this webbing there to make it a little bit more separated and looks a little bit more realistic. And if you want, you could even sharpen it, but I'm not going to do it all the way. I think I'm going to keep it like that. Right about there looks pretty good. I'm going to switch back to vertex select mode. And for his front tooth, we can go ahead and just grab these guys. I'm going to uncheck. Yeah, they're pretty. Actually, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, but we have to uncheck clipping for now. we'll just go ahead and do E to extrude and size that in. And then I'm going to hit S and X to size it along the X a lot more. And then put clipping back on so that way this sticks together still. You pull that up, flatten it out a little bit. Pull that up. Pull it back. I'll probably go ahead and do a sharpen there to make it look a little bit better. Size that in. Control R. Drag that out for our first set of fangs. Now, it looks a little flat. I'm going to go ahead and add a loop here. And we can deselect everything that's not where we need it. Like this. Oops. SX, size that out. And then I'll grab this one and pull that along the Y to round it out a little bit. There we go. That's looking better. Draw this back up for our gum line again. That looks pretty good. And actually, let's do, you push them in a little bit. Perfect. Now, the tricky part. We're gonna go ahead and just gonna go ahead and add a loop. And it's a little weird. It goes through a lot. Oh my goodness, it goes through everything. But we're just gonna let it fly. So that way we have that there, and we're gonna have to add another one here. So that way when we grab this, it will actually start to round out. So we pull this up like that, widen it. There we go. That's looking better. And then we can push the teeth out of here. So probably want to go ahead and we probably do the upper teeth really quickly. Like I said, he has really little teeth up at the front, and then they're a little bit bigger along the back. And they're kind of frequent too, but which works out perfectly because we just added a bunch of geometry anyway. So I'm just going to switch to face select and kind of pick out where I think some teeth would look good. So I'm going to go ahead, do some on the front. So we're going to just do E to extrude, and I want to size that in and then size it along the X a lot. I just have to keep rotating it since it's at a different angle. Just going to E to extrude, pull that down. So we start getting some of these little teeth, and I'll probably make it a little bit larger than it probably should be since, you know, just to make sure they do show up when we print them out. And that one's pretty long along the Y, so I'm just going to go ahead and size that in. So this part is pretty, like, pretty much just kind of what you feel like. It's nothing too scripted for here. It's kind of just going through, picking out where you think teeth would look good, and then go from there. Let's see, we can grab this, do E2 extrude, size that a lot along the Y, and then we just have to rotate it along here. Fix that up, E2 extrude, pull that down. That one's really large. More like that. Need to extrude. And I can start letting them get a little bit bigger towards the back. So go ahead, these guys. And maybe one more in the back. Rotate. All right, that's a decent start. We probably could, oh, I'm just realizing how thin this one is. There we go, that's better. Just want to round that one out a little bit since it was so flat. And we could probably do some more in the front, but for now, really need to figure out how we want to do these teeth in the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 2 loops here and Control R and do 2 loops there as well. Now these ones are supposed to be a little bit longer and skinnier, so what I want to do, we'll have to do them individually for sizing, but we'll just go ahead and do E to extrude, size that in, E to extrude, size that in, E to extrude, size that in. I'm going to size that one along the Y a little bit more. These ones were already a little bit more square, so it worked out. And then E to extrude, just right click out of that and just start pulling that up and back. And I'm going to go over here and switch this to individual origins. So when I size them down, they just size down like that and they don't size towards each other. I'm gonna rotate and grab them and pull them up. Just like that. So we have our back row of teeth. Perfect. That actually worked out pretty well. So that leaves us basically with just making some nostrils. Basically what I want to do for that is going to add another loop here, drag it up just like that. So we have that protecting it, and then we're going to grab these two vertices here and just start pulling that up. It's kind of like a snake ridge almost, kind of what we're going for. And then we'll just grab this, do E to extrude, size that down. We can even pull it out to give it a little bit more dimension. E to extrude and push that back. And I'm going to size that way down. Awesome. So the nose looks pretty good. Other than that, there's not too much else I wanted to add. From here, it's basically just going back, adding more detail, maybe adding some more teeth. Some of these edges got a little sharpened because of the loops we added, so probably be good to go back and do some cleanup. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. Questions, concerns, anything like that, requests. You can feel free to post them in the comments below. If you want the fastest response, feel free to join my Discord. That's also down below in the description box. Other than that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Next week, we'll go ahead and get the rig set up for this guy, which is going to be probably a lot. It'll probably be pretty easy. It's just going to be repetitive. So other than that, hopefully you guys are ready for next week's video, and I'll see you then.